permit me to stand on the protocols established, and of course to convey regrets on behalf of the Honorable Minister of Planning and Development, the Honorable Penelope Beckles Robinson, who had to attend to matters of state at the last minute. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, at the outset, let me congratulate the IAMovement, firstly on its 10th anniversary, and to recognize their sterling contributions to sustainable development, both in Trinidad and Tobago, as well as in the region, and secondly, on organizing this timely conference on a topic that is gaining increasing international recognition. This conference comes on the heels of the outcomes of the 29th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or the UNFCCC, which was dubbed the Climate Finance Conference, as it was supposed to define a new climate finance goal. Ultimately, the new finance goal agreed to was largely viewed as inadequate given the increasing impacts of climate change and, more importantly, the disproportionate impacts in the region. The new goal also references innovative sources of climate finance. In this regard, the role of the carbon market and carbon trading under the Paris Agreement, more specifically its Article 6, becomes relevant as it can serve as a source of innovative climate finance. As we know, the Paris Agreement is a landmark accord aimed at limiting global temperature rise to well below 2 degrees Celsius, with efforts to cap it at 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Achieving this goal requires significant emissions reductions from all corners of society, governments, businesses, and the private sector, and individuals alike. While governments play a critical role by committing to emissions reductions through their nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, under the Paris Agreement, the private sector is an equally important player, including through mechanisms like the carbon market. The carbon market, as it operates now, is broadly divided into two components, as Minister Manning had previously mentioned. The voluntary carbon market, which is a decentralized system, and a centralized system under the Article 6.4 of the Paris Agreement. These can further be classified as compliance markets, such as those under Article 6, and non-compliance markets, such as the voluntary carbon market. It is therefore important to understand what these types of markets entail and what could be the implications for international and national climate policy, which is what I want to address today. Understanding the voluntary carbon market. The voluntary carbon market, or the VCM, is a platform that allows businesses, organizations, and even individuals to purchase carbon credits to offset their emissions. These credits are generated by projects that reduce or remove greenhouse gases, such as reforestation, renewable energy development, or carbon capture and storage. Unlike compliance markets, which are regulated by governments, the VCM operates on a voluntary basis, driven by corporate sustainability goals, consumer demands, and reputational concerns. This market is growing rapidly. In 2022, for example, the voluntary carbon market was valued at over $2 billion, and it is expected to expand further as companies pledge to achieve net zero emissions. However, its growth raises critical questions in respect of policy. How does the VCM complement or even compete with the goals of Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, and therefore national and international climate change policy? Article 6 of the Paris Agreement provides a framework for international cooperation in achieving climate goals. It establishes two key mechanisms for carbon trading, and hence defines the carbon market under the Paris Agreement. Article 6.2, for example, allows countries to trade what are referred to as internationally transferred mitigation outcomes to meet their nationally determined contributions. This promotes cooperation between nations and ensures transparency and accountability. Article 6.4 establishes a global market mechanism under the supervision of the UNFCCC, enabling the private sector to participate in certified emissions reductions while contributing to sustainable development. More importantly, these mechanisms are underpinned by the principles of no double counting, maintaining and enhancing environmental integrity, and ensuring that every traded unit or credit represents a real and measurable reduction in emissions and not merely an offset. As these markets are established and operated under an intergovernmental regime, it has government oversight and hence accountability. The voluntary carbon market, while not formally governed by Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, intersects with its principles and raises both opportunities as well as challenges. Implications of the VCM for Article 6. So what are the implications of the voluntary carbon market for the regulated Article 6 mechanism? One, complementarity. The VCM can complement Article 6 by channeling private finance into climate mitigation projects that might not otherwise receive funding. For example, companies purchasing credits from nature-based solutions support sustainable development while contributing to global emissions reductions. This can indirectly help countries to meet their commitments under the Paris Agreement. Two, the challenges of double counting. A major concern is the risk of double counting, where a carbon credit is claimed both by the host country towards its Paris Agreement commitments and by the buyer for its own offset goals or its own NDC. Article 6 provides guidance on avoiding this through what are known as corresponding adjustments. What does this mean? This essentially means that if a country sells its credits to a broker or another country and the buying country uses the credits for its own commitments under the Paris Agreement, then the selling country cannot use the same credits for its own commitments, but rather has to add the equivalent value back to its NDC or commitment. This means that the credits essentially benefits the buying country in respect of meeting the targets of its NDC, but can represent a potential burden to the selling country, notwithstanding that the credits would have accrued finance through the sale. However, in the voluntary carbon market, not all credits are subject to such rules. It is therefore critically important that there is alignment with Article 6, which will require greater transparency and robust accounting frameworks. Quality and integrity. The effectiveness of the VCM depends on the quality of the credits traded. Low quality credits, or those that do not represent real, additional, and permanent reductions, can undermine the credibility of both the VCM itself and Article 6. Therefore, strengthening certification standards and aligning them with Article 6.4 is critically essential. Scaling ambition. The VCM can have the potential to go beyond the ambition of NDCs by encouraging private sector actors to reduce emissions voluntarily, even in sectors not covered by government commitments. However, care must be taken to ensure that these voluntary actions do not displace nor delay mandatory reductions, such as those under the nationally determined contributions, and more importantly, are accounted for in the National Greenhouse Gas Accounting Framework. There is therefore a clear need for reconciling the policy gaps and different aspects of the carbon market in order to fully explore and maximize its potential in achieving climate policy objectives. So what then is the way forward? Minister Manning already outlined a few policy objectives. The foregoing, while appearing to be highly technical, I thought was necessary to place the policy approach to the carbon market in proper context. To unlock the full potential of the voluntary carbon market while maintaining the integrity of Article 6, we must take several policy steps. One, develop clear governance frameworks. Aligning the voluntary carbon market standards with Article 6 principles to ensure consistency, transparency, and accountability is an obvious first step. This will require a clear and comprehensive policy and legislative framework that will allow us to account for all trades and, by extension, all greenhouse gas emissions and sequestration as the country is obligated to do. Accounting for these emissions is a reporting and accounting commitment under the Paris Agreement for Trinidad and Tobago. 2, promote high-quality credits. Strengthening certification schemes to guarantee that carbon credits under the VCM represent real, additional, and permanent emissions reductions and are not used for greenwashing or virtue signaling, which undermines transparency and accountability and can be a potent threat to climate policy, will serve to instill confidence in the broader carbon market while allowing for greater transparency and accountability. 3, encourage collaboration. Fostering dialogue between government and the private sector and international organizations to harmonize the VCM with compliance markets will also serve to increase confidence, transparency, and accountability in public-private partnerships. And of course, there's raising awareness, educating businesses and consumers on the importance of environmental integrity and the role of Article 6 in achieving national climate change policy goals, NDC targets, and by extension, global climate goals will foster understanding of the respective roles and responsibilities towards achieving those common goals. A shared responsibility is therefore essential. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change is the defining challenge of our time. The carbon market, while not a silver bullet for the climate change crisis, nor that it can be, can nonetheless be an important potential tool. By aligning it with Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, we need to ensure that carbon trading contributes meaningfully to a sustainable, low-carbon future, as is the objective of the national climate change policy. To do this, it is critically important that a robust national policy framework be developed to address all aspects of the carbon market, including compliance with applicable trade laws and perhaps the development of such legislation, as this is relatively new territory for Trinidad and Tobago. As was previously outlined, I'm pleased to let you know that the Ministry of Planning and Development is currently finalizing the preparations for the development of a carbon trading policy and a carbon pricing mechanism that will address all of these issues. The government views such a policy framework as important for harmonizing the many possible disjointed parts, and therefore one that will govern the operation of the carbon market in a manner that not only reduces emissions, but also uplifts communities, protects biodiversity, inspires greater climate ambition while preserving environmental integrity and promoting transparency. This conference is therefore timely and topical, and I do look forward to hearing more of the discussion that can serve to inform our carbon trading policy and carbon pricing mechanism development. I thank you.